Hello friends, amazing films here. Today, I'm going to recap you a fantasy romantic drama film called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. An old woman lies vulnerably in a hospital bed while Hurricane Katrina hits New Orleans. A younger woman crosses the space in between them and desperately tries to console the old woman. The old woman was ready and waiting to cease. A short recollection of a familiar story swiftly appears before her consciousness. A visually impaired watchmaker in New Orleans has a son who has been deployed on the battlefield. When his son left, all he did was work on the town's most prominent watch. After 4 short months, a letter arrived proclaiming their son died in the war. The watchmaker mourned so much that he decided to reverse engineer the town's watch to commemorate all the lives lost in the war. He wished that he could turn back the time to keep their children alive, and their sons would come back home one day. The whole town remembered the clock as the watchmaker's parting gift, as he was never seen again. The old woman Daisy asks the younger woman Caroline to pick up a book from her suitcase. She asks her to open the book and read through the pages. Caroline sees several memorabilia attached to the diary. Caroline reads a last will and testament. The testament leaves no possessions of wealth but revelations to Caroline as far as a man named Benjamin can remember. When the war was announced to have ended, the families of the dead soldiers mourned. But the war is a two-faced traitor being celebrated by the rest of the people in New Orleans. A man sprints nervously in the middle of the rejoicing crowd towards his house. He comes home to her dying wife after giving birth. The ill woman asks him to promise her to show love and affection to her child before she bids him farewell. Thomas steps towards the crib, leans over the crying little creature, almost vomiting on sight. He jerkily carries him and runs the house outwards. He takes him to drown alive in the lake just a mile away from home, but a guard shouts over and runs after him. The guard loses sight of Thomas as he hides in a short alley. He inserts a piece of cloth into the child's swaddle and leaves him in the stairs of a well-lit house just behind the alley. A couple is sweetly talking outside the house, but an old lady interrupts their moment. The woman follows the old lady back inside the house, but the man drags her and mindlessly takes small steps down the stairs. The man could have crashed the tiny, swaddled boy in the stairs if he has not immediately lifted his foot and skipped. The woman opens up the swaddle, revealing the oddest baby the two have ever seen. The couple gasps in horror and amusement. The man persuades her to leave the baby alone, but the woman picks him up and carries him inside the house. She keeps him in her drawers in her room and assists the aged people in the shelter. She comes in to survive. Queenie carefully takes the baby to the shelter where the aged people gather and names the little boy Benjamin. Benjamin finds a home as Queenie raises him in the shelter. Growing up, Benjamin lived the first few years of his life thinking he was also in his twilight years, just like the people in the shelter. He was the playful old man who can only move his limbs with a wheelchair. Queenie stands by him as he aged into youth. One night, Queenie takes Benjamin to a faith healer. She asks to be prayed over to start bearing a child and clear Benjamin from what she called the devil's curse. The healer asks him to rise from his wheelchair, but Benjamin falls down. He manages to rise again and takes little steps. The healer collapses and dies in rejoice at Benjamin's victory that night. The shelter has regular visits from birthdays and deaths, and Benjamin witnesses how people come and go, leaving him wondering why death hasn't taken him yet. Benjamin becomes acquainted with a pygmy man who takes him to train trips and parks. The pygmy man leaves him alone in crutches, where Benjamin spends the whole night walking himself home. Benjamin thought it was one of the best days of his life. On Sundays, the families of the aged people visit the shelter for Thanksgiving. One of the elderly women introduces Benjamin to her granddaughter, Daisy, an adorable auburn girl with blue eyes. He falls in love the moment she met Daisy. After serving the Thanksgiving lunch, Queenie announces that she is going to have a baby. While Benjamin is dealing with the news, Daisy starts opening up and playing to Benjamin. One night, the two light up a candle under a bed down the basement and reveal secrets to each other. Benjamin admits that he was not as old as he looked, and Daisy believes he was different from the others. Daisy's grandmother catches and scolds the two of them for misbehaving. When Daisy left, Benjamin gets back to getting acquainted with older people. One lady teaches him how to play the piano. As time goes by, Benjamin notices more changes taking place in his body. One day, he visits a port with another old man and is hired to work in the boat. The work in the sea excites the odd Benjamin. He grows close to Captain Mike, who eventually discovers that he was still a virgin. Captain Mike takes Benjamin to a brothel where they have a dose of liquors, sentiments and women. Despite Benjamin's odd and peculiar appearance, a prostitute eagerly takes him but becomes flabbergasted when Benjamin does not run out of sexual vigor. He became her sole guest. While going home from the brothel, a car stops by Benjamin on the sidewalk. He invites Benjamin to the car and introduces himself as Thomas Button. The two heads to a luxurious bar and talks about Benjamin's disease. Later that night, Thomas takes him home and asks him if he could pay a visit time after time. Daisy comes by another Thanksgiving Day and spends the day with Daisy in the tugboat. Captain Mike revs the boat to life as Benjamin wishes. Benjamin's old lady friend dies one day. There, he comes to an epiphany that his life passes by differently than anyone else in the shelter. He lovingly bids farewell to her parents and the shelter, who wish him safety and happiness in turn. Benjamin promises to write Daisy a postcard from wherever he lands. His life in the sea was long and agonizing, but Daisy makes sure to send a letter back after every postcard. Meanwhile, Daisy advances to be a professional ballet dancer. Benjamin and his crew stop by brothels and bars whenever they dock on land. On one trip, Benjamin pays for a hotel room where he meets Elizabeth and her husband Walter, who happens to be a spy. One night when he had trouble dozing off, he gets acquainted with Elizabeth. They find solace with each other countless nights, meeting at the hotel lobby every night when he couldn't sleep and when she doesn't have her husband around her. Benjamin falls in love with the married Elizabeth. Benjamin admits the unfortunate news to Daisy. Even though Daisy is making significant progress with her career, the news broke her heart. Benjamin spends many nights with Elizabeth, where he conscientiously ends up making love to her. Their affair is too good to be true until one night, Elizabeth no longer meets him in the lobby of their own little world. Benjamin learns to deal with losing Elizabeth when the war starts to break out back in the sea. The crew is preparing for salvage, but their tugboat has been caught in between the military distress. The opponents kill their captain and some of the crew, and the tugboat crashes in despair. Benjamin is, fortunately, alive and bids goodbye to the friendships who died along with the tugboat. Benjamin comes back home to the shelter where she sees to happy, old Queenie. Despite the sorrow on the sea and the death in the shelter, both of them are immensely grateful and apologetic at the same time. One lonely morning, Daisy visits the shelter. Daisy hugs Benjamin, but Benjamin dwells that Daisy was just a girl when he left, but a beautiful woman had taken her place when he came back. Daisy and Benjamin head out for a night to reconnect, and Benjamin finds himself falling in love with a gracefully dancing Daisy, who kisses and seduces him before the night ends. She goes home disappointed as Benjamin adamantly rejects him. The following night, an old friend Thomas passes by the shelter and takes Benjamin for a dinner where he admits his affection for Benjamin as a company. He takes Benjamin to the Button factory, where he reveals that Benjamin is his son. He tours her around his house and introduces an old picture of Benjamin's mother, Caroline. Benjamin leaves Thomas's house confused and pained. Later, he comes back to the Buttons' mansion and picks him up for an early trip to the lake, where Thomas lets go of his life. Benjamin heads to New York for Daisy's show. He once again falls in love with the graceful Daisy on stage. After the show, he pays her a backstage visit. Benjamin becomes jealous and leaves the after-party when a friend kisses Daisy squarely on the lips. She chases after her but ends up leaving too after hearing that Benjamin felt happy for her boyfriend. Benjamin spends his days touring with his motorcycle and repairing things in the shelter. One day, he receives a sad letter and heads to a hospital in Paris. Daisy is suffering from multiple injuries after being hit by a taxi days ago. Benjamin wants to take her home, but Daisy asks him to stay out of his life. The broken Benjamin dealt with the agony through countless one-night stands. Daisy reconnects with Benjamin one day where they end up making love that night. The two spend their years passionately making love at different places in different weather. Eventually, Benjamin's disease starts complicating their relationships. Daisy worries that Benjamin will wake up to an old lady one day, but she shrugs it off, knowing he loved him enough. The news of Queenie's death breaks Benjamin and Daisy but moves on after time. Benjamin sells his father's mansion to live his years with Daisy in their own duplex. The loss of youth caused Daisy great pain, but she promises Benjamin to accept aging as it is. Daisy opens up her own ballet class and reveals that she is carrying Benjamin's child. Benjamin grows excessively worried that the baby might end up like him or he might not be able to father the baby at all. Daisy eases him off by promising that she will make things work for their family. 9 months later, Daisy triumphantly gives birth to their first child and names the child after his mother, Caroline. Caroline becomes angry after the diary's revelation but continued reading through the pages. The gravity of Benjamin's disease started to show when he realized that their child needs a father and not a playmate. Even though he loved his wife and daughter, he decides to leave them with all his inheritances to live in the direction his disease is taking him. Caroline reads all the notes of regrets in the postcards her father has sent throughout her life. Benjamin spent the rest of his life in vain in different places. One day, the teen-looking Benjamin decides to see Caroline and Daisy, but he discovers that she remarried the man who fathered Caroline. Daisy and Benjamin spent their last passionate night together at a hotel. The years went through without seeing each other. But a man called Daisy to hand out his diary. In his early years, Benjamin is playing a familiar tune on the piano, suffering from dementia. The old Daisy takes care of the demented young Benjamin until the government of Louisiana replaced the town's watch. Oddly enough, his forgetful and agonizing years came to an end. The hurricane completely broke out of New Orleans when Caroline finished reading the diary. When the city was flooded, the story of Benjamin and the reverse-engineered watch have ended.